even 60 years of Goldfinger. Probably doesn't seem that long ago since you filmed it. Just a question for Marianne to start with. So your role, from what we're led to believe, is Goldfinger's girlfriend?
Yes.
Correct. And you worked on the pool scene with Sean
Miami, yes.
and in Miami.
Yes.
So can you just tell us a bit more about your role? And then
Yes, well, I played the girlfriend of Goldfinger, which was shot in Miami, and with Sean Connery, and had a chance to speak to him quite a lot actually, and he was very keen on his golf, setting up while playing golf, and if he had a day off he'd be playing golf. But he was very, very charming. Everybody was very, very nice. It was very enjoyable to work on that set, I must admit.
Was there any deleted scenes, any additional scenes that were filmed or just weren't shown?
So there were quite a lot of shots, in the pool. There were, some dialogue as well, and most of it was around the pool though. But there were other shots, but I don't think it was all. Maybe it was too long. It wasn't all shown.
Yeah. Did you have any scenes with Jack Frobe as Goldfinger?
Sorry.
Did you have any scenes with Goldfinger in dialogue with him?
Yes, there was actually. Yes, there was some dialogue, but it must have overrun because it wasn't shown.
Yeah.
And I've worked on, as you say, on the Carry On films, had a lot of dialogue on that, on 4 or 5 Carry On films.
Yeah. But what a fantastic scene.
I seem to be remembered more because it was a Bond film, and there was a big photograph with Sean Connery in the Daily Mirror, and I got a lot of, people approaching me, for work, and agents, because this photograph that was with Sean Connery, and it did help my career quite a bit actually. Yes, it was very pleasant to do it.
Absolutely fantastic. Alexandra, so you were part of the promotion for the Busy Girls Flying Circus.
Well, I'm actually not in Goldfinger. I spent 3 days shooting it as Pussy Galore's girl pilot or something, but I didn't make it to the film at all.
Did you shoot any scenes that were just cut, or was you just promotional material?
No, I was in a little aeroplane and the camera was there. A funny story was, I was walking out to this field to get into this aeroplane, and a man fell into step beside me. He had a hammer in his hand, so I thought he was part of the props department. So he said, "You're in Goldfinger, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I'm on a Pussy Galore's Flying Circus." And I said, "And what do you do?" He said, "Oh, I'm in it too." And I said, "What part are you playing?" He said, "James Bond." So funny. And he was so sweet. And he didn't have his front hair bit on because he had
a hairpiece.
A hairpiece, yes. So I didn't recognise it. But I hadn't seen a Bond film because I think it was about the 2nd or 3rd Bond film ever shot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I haven't actually seen one. So that's it.
Fantastic story there. And Karen, just a question for you. So you were a regular member of the original Flying Circus. Yeah. What was it like working on set with Honor Blackman and the rest of the ladies?
It was wonderful. Us girls had lots of fun. I took photographs of everybody, which I got, and Honor Blackman was having her eyelashes stuck on whilst they were waiting to do the shot. What happened was, I got a phone call from my agent, I think I was 23, to say, "Can you get down to the studios because somebody hasn't shown up?" And I think at the time there were about 3 actresses that didn't turn up to be Pussy Galore pilots. So they said, "Get down there, get in the outfit and run across the field." So there were 7 of us, all in these black outfits with white boots, white belts, and they said, "Right," I didn't know what was going on, I was only 23. "You've got to run towards Honor Blackman as though you're in love with her." And I was like, "What?" So that's what we did, and we had to look adoringly at her, and she would be waiting for us. And we did this many, many times. Running across the field. Yes. I've got pictures of us all running across the field. But that was it was 3 days. And I remember Leslie Langley, who was one of the pilots, she was Miss World as well, she was saying to me she was more concerned about meeting one of the actors who was working at the studios at the time than running across the field. But yes, it was fun to do, and I have to say it's been very good to me over the years because, you know, nobody said anything. We just smiled and looked lovingly. And financially, you know, over the years it's been really good.
And Goldfinger is one of the most iconic Bond films of all.
Sorry?
Goldfinger is one of the most iconic Bond films of all. It's probably one of the best ones. So
I think so.
to be involved
I think
with that,
very favourite, isn't
and
it?
at the height of Bond, it was Bond mania after Goldfinger, so it really set the other films up, I think. So you're very lucky.
I did meet Sean Connery, but not on the set. I was actually invited to lunch in Piccadilly, and he was with his agent, and I was invited. And they said, "Oh, we're going to watch a film later on." It was E.T. And I sat next to Sean Connery watching E.T. It was so exciting.
That's fantastic, Mary, that is. So I'm just going to pass you over to you.
And Marion, so you mentioned about working on the Carry On films. How different was that to working on the Bond film? Was Cubby Broccoli around at all?
Yes, he was around. He was on the set, you know, with his director, and he used to turn up in his Rolls Royce, you know,
Yeah, sure.
and you know, things like that. And he was well known for you know, being very tight with money, with actors, you know. And I think that he's been shown on television with that. You know, it was a very tight budget. You know, everyone felt they were underpaid, you know.
Yeah, sure.
But you know, we at the time, you know, I was young and I was happy to be working and be asked for. I went for one interview for the first one, Carry On Cruising, you know, where I was on a honeymoon, you know, on the cruise with on the honeymoon, you know, and that was the first one, and it was a cameo part. And then after that, I did about 4 or 5. They just asked for me, you know, and they like to keep the same characters going, you know. And then the next one was Carry On Cabby, where I was like a bride going, you know, away on honeymoon. So they followed the character through. Though I never got the leading parts. The leading parts were people that I studied with. Shirley Eaton was one of them, you know, and she did very well. She did a lot of the Carry On films, and Dentist on the Job, and those sort of films, and also Barbara Windsor, you know. So they stuck to giving the leading parts to you know, those particular characters. They keep the same characters, you know. And at one time I was thinking I was applying to go to America to work, where, you know, they were much kinder to female actresses. And but then work came in here, so I decided to stay here. But you know, they carry on. If you start doing smaller parts, this is though I did have a lead. I was in a radio series called Meet the Huggets, where I played Jane, the daughter, who was originally by Petula Clark, played by, and they were intending making a film of it and using the same characters, but unfortunately. Kathleen Harrison and Jack Warner, who because I went to a stage school, Ada Foster, so I started when I was 12 in the business, which is quite young, you know. And anyway, they couldn't fit it in with their workload, so it was cancelled, you know. But that was the lead.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So when I went for film interviews, they said, well, you know, you need to get the experience. So I had to start, you know, with small parts and leading up to it. But you know, in the end, you know, you get stuck. You get, you know, characterised with what you've done. Well, I loved the business, and I was quite happy to be working. You know, it was for pleasure. But the Bond film is different altogether. It's a more glamorous thing, you know, and I did enjoy it very much. You know, very much.
So thank you very much. Thank you. Alexandra, how did your part in the publicity film come about? Did you apply for how did your part in the publicity come about? Did you apply for an advert that you saw in a paper?
How did my what apply?
The part of the publicity come about.
What do you mean?
Your role in Goldfinger.
How did you? Was it an advert in a paper or?
No, I mean, nobody ever sort of wanted to publicise me, particularly. And I'm not in the film, and I'm not in the credits. So,
So how did you get asked to be part
oh,
of
my
it?
agent would
Oh, I
have sent
see.
me for a
Okay,
part
yes,
to be
understand.
one of Pussy Gallore's flying circus. And then I had a scene in a cockpit
Sure.
driving an aeroplane. That's been cut. And we all went out and went up to Honour Flashman and all of that. I was one of them. So we were together, you and me. Yes. It was great fun though.
Excellent, thank you.
3 days work, you know.
Yeah.
We didn't know what a James Bond film was, particularly.
And Karen, you mentioned the outfit you wore. Did you manage to sneak it away from the set?
I'd love to have kept it. You know, can you imagine you could dine out in that?
No.
3 days later, somebody else was wearing it. Apparently, there were several groups of Bond girls, Pussy Galore pilots. I don't know how they knew who was who, because some girls never showed up. Then some other girls came, and there were all these different photographs, so they must have had different locations.
Sure.
Would that be it?
Yes, yeah. Thank you very much.
I think the main location was Pinewood and the field.
Of course, you're sure,
With
yeah.
the aeroplanes, wasn't it?
Was it Northolt? Anyone know?
Sorry?
Northolt Airport?
No, it was a field with aeroplanes and everything,
Oh, right.
and barrels, and it was this area. I'm sure it was this area. And there was Maggie Wright, who was one of the Pussy Galore pilots, Leslie Langley, who was Miss World.
Denham.
Who?
Denham.
Denham.
Denham Airfield.
Denham Airfield.
Yes.
Thanks. John?
John?
But there's, I mean, lots of films have
Sure.
carried on after that. I think that was one of my first ones. I was in Death is a Woman, which was a bit provocative and a bit of undressing, which I didn't know what I was doing, but you know, it was a job. But that was quite fun in the end. What else? I've got to think what I've done, all these films I've been in. Roger Moore. I've worked a lot with Roger Moore on The Saint, various ones, and then he did a thing with called The Fiction Makers, and he played a talent person looking for somebody to be in a film. So there I was at a film premiere, and they had an actual film premiere set, and we had a lovely scene together in the cinema together. He was quite naughty to work with. I was doing one scene with him, and I came out to do my dialogue, and he wasn't there. And they were saying, "Come on, Roger, get out of the cupboard." He'd go and hide and just slow things down, but that's what he was like. I mean, he was always fun. We used to all go for dinner afterwards at Pinewood. Oh no, Wheelstreet, wouldn't it? We'd go for dinner afterwards with Robert Baker, who was a very dear friend of mine, and yes, they were good times.
Very fond memories. Very fond memories as well.
Yes,
I've got
very
a
fond
memory
memories.
of him also.
Robert Baker.
No,
Roger Moore?
Roger Moore. I was in The Saint with him, and I just arrived from South Africa, and I didn't know anything. And I was suddenly sent to be this part in The Saint up at ATV Studios, which I did, and he was very kind and nice, etc. And then afterwards, I stood at some bus stop to get back to London, and he passed in a very smart car. And he said, "Did I want a lift?" I said, "Yes, I'd love one, thank you." So in this very sort of low car, you know, I told him my little story about coming from South Africa and the whole thing. When we got to London, he never laid a hand on me. He said, "This is my flat." He never said, "Come up and have a coffee," or anything. He was a perfect gentleman, and he let me out and said, "That's your bus to go down to Fulham." Because when usually seedy film directors, actors never made a pass at me, but the seedy film directors and the agents always did. And the first time one of them took me to dinner, I was 22, so I wasn't very young. He said, "Would I like to have a coffee in his flat afterwards?" I thought, "Yeah, I'd love a coffee, thank you." Round and round the chase, and off I went. So Roger Moore was such a gentleman. I mean, he could have asked me up to his flat and said nothing. So I love him.
Yes, I'm afraid we all had that casting couch thing. I was sent to an interview at a hotel, I think it was the one in Dorchester, to meet up with this man in his apartment. And the agent said, it was the one you were with. The agency, I can't remember the name. Anyway, I got up there. No, not Lefty Grey. Anyway, I went there and I said, "What is this part about?" And he showed me this script. And we were sitting on a sofa together, and he was edging closer and closer to me. And then he made a pass at me and grabbed me. And I just, no, I don't want to be in the film. And I ran out there. When I phoned the agency, all he said was, that show was...
That's terrible.
So yeah, thankfully we've got different times now, and hopefully that kind of thing's been stamped out. So yeah. Sorry to hear about all the issues you've had, but you've had good times as well as the. Sorry to hear all the issues you've had with regards to some of the films, but you've had some really good times as well, some really great memories. As we close, what are your best favourite memories looking back on Goldfinger or some of your career films?
Morecambe and Wise, I did a few of those, they were fun to work with. I got a lift home as well with Ernie. In his big American car, open top car, gave me a lift home. I'm trying to think what else. I've done so many things, I should have had my list. Where's my list? Come on, Karen, get it together. You
The Avengers? Were you in the Avengers?
Sorry?
The Avengers?
Oh yes, I was in the Avengers. That was one of my first jobs, the Avengers. Then, as I say, I worked a lot with Roger. Death is the Woman, that was with Patsy Ann Noble. And
Were you in Department X?
yes, I was in Department. How can I forget Peter
that-
Wingard?
Yes, Peter
That
Wingard. What was
a-
Jason King like?
Oh, he was adorable. I mean, we had the scene on the beach. Thank you for that. We're on the beach together, and I'm in my bikini, and we're having a sort of romantic scene, and he's about to kiss me, you know. And then suddenly, I get shot in the back of the head. And that was the end of me. But we did have some dancing scenes together in another scene. And then there's another one I did with Peter Sellers, and it was the wonderful scene where you have to go under the water and then pop up. And he goes, oh, I didn't look at you. Anyway, I was asked to do this. I was terribly young and terribly stupid. And they said, you're going to have to go in the water and then pop up. And I thought, I've just had my hair done. So I said, I can't do that. So they gave the part to somebody else. And everybody was saying, you should have done that. You should have done that. You know, the director was saying that. And I was thinking, oh, and I was feeling sick all day, thinking how I missed out on the scene with Peter Sellers. Anyway, somebody must have said, oh, give her a little scene. So I had the scene in the nudist colony. And he's there with a banjo or something on his lap, you know, hiding everything. And I come out, and it wouldn't be a banjo, would it be something? And he said, he comes out, and I say to him, anyone for tennis? And he goes, oh. And you know, that was the end of it. That was my scene. So I thought, oh, at least I'm in it. Well, it got cut. But at least I did it.
Yes.
Fantastic. What about yourself, Marion?
Yes, well, I had, talking about the casting couch, I had a few incidents that were similar to that, you know. There was a producer who was quite well known, Val Guest, and he made many films. So my agent took me to see him when I was about 15 or 16, you know, but I obviously looked maybe older. And he was very impressed with me. In fact, he wrote on in an article about, he said, you know, I think she's got a lot of potential, and the moment she's too young, you know, and inexperienced, but she should never give up the business. And he wanted to see me again, you know, in a year or two, when obviously. So this went on. So about a year or so later, he asked to see me again, and I was asked to go and see him. And he said the same thing. So this went on for a couple of years. He was recording my voice and everything, you know, and sitting, like, you know, close to me on the couch, you know. And I was very young and naive, you know. So you know, and then the same thing happened again. Eventually, he offered me a part in a film called Life is a Circus. It was a very, he was auditioning me for leads. I think one of them he gave to an actress called Vera Day. I'd been auditioned for the leads, but he said the same thing, she's still too young. Possibly because I wasn't very cooperative, you know, but I was too naive to realise that, you know. He seemed to be quite a charming man, but obviously, you know.
Yeah, other ideas.
You know. So eventually he did offer, I did have a part, but it was a very small part, as like an ice cream girl, you know, in this scene, Life is a Circus. But it was such a build-up, you know, about auditioning me for leads and this sort of thing. But unfortunately, this is the way it goes, you know, in that business, or it used to be.
The same thing happened with me with Val Guest. I was so excited to be meeting him because I was doing a bit of extra work in the early days, which is what we did. And he said, I'm going to have to ask you to take your top off. So I said, why? He said, well, this is about a beauty queens, and I want to make sure that you've got firm breasts. And silly cow, I took my top off. I never got the top.
It's funny about that because I was offered a part similar to that, and I was asked, there was also a beauty queen contest, maybe it was the same thing, and I was asked, they said, would you object, to put it, and it wasn't, I guess it was another director, he said, would you just drop your shoulder strap, like from the side and show the side thing, and the filming was 2 months in the south of France. And instead of agreeing to it, I said, oh no, I couldn't do that, my agent wouldn't like it, because I was with an agent, Ada Foster's had a school. So, they had to, it wasn't in their interest to let you do topless, or it wasn't actually topless, but you drop the shoulders down. So I turned it down, and I could have had 2 months in the south of France, on holiday. And it wasn't, it was just like a sideshow. Because it was beginning to, all this topless was coming in, and I wasn't prepared to do it.
That's fair enough, yeah. Alexandra, do you have any career highlights? Because obviously you was in Carry On Up the Clyber and a few of the strong Carry On films.
I love the Carry Ons because they were all so sweet to you, and you knew everybody, and they were just lovely to be on because everybody was so friendly, and even if you forgot your lines. I remember in one of them, I was lying down, I don't know what it was, and it was after lunch, and I fell asleep. It was very hard. No, I don't drink actually, but I'd had a really good lunch, and we get, you're dressed and made up by 7 in the morning. So I lay back there and I fell fast asleep. I wasn't snoring, but I am asleep when you see that film. But my very first film I ever did, I had to dive into the water because I was a good diver and a good swimmer. And I had to come up and say, come on in, it's warm. The whole week I worked on the line, come on in, it's warm. Come on in, it's warm, to get it right. So it's 7 o'clock and it's winter, my first winter here. And we're up near the river, somewhere near Oxford. And so you can imagine how cold it was. And I go down the jetty and I do a beautiful dive. And the water was so cold, it was like diving into ice. And I came up and I went, whoa. They called me out and filled me full of brandy to warm me up and dry me off again. And I don't drink, and it's 7 in the morning. So I went down the jetty a bit drunk. I did a terrible belly flop dive. And I went, come on in, it's warm. They stabbed my skull. That was the first line I ever said in a film.
So what we're going to do is going to open it up to the floor, so if we've got time for a couple of questions, anyone put their hand up, don't all rush. Anyone?
Part. And I loved him as playing that part as well.
Very charismatic man to be
Very, very handsome, charismatic, charming, and even better, sitting next to him.
I think he was the best Bond, actually. I think he created that part, and it was the best Bond.
Yeah. Roger was lovely though.
Roger was very good as well.
He was fun.
Charming.
Whenever I saw him, he'd be coming walking towards me, and he'd be saying, "As I live and breathe, Karen Gardner." Always.
I've got a quick question. Were any of you in The Persuaders with Roger Moore and Tony Curtis? In The Persuaders?
I was, I think. No.
Check on IMDb.
No, I worked with him on The Saint, and he was very, very charming on that, I must say. Yes.
I missed The Persuaders, that was it, because I was pregnant. Nothing to do with Roger. But Robert Baker said to me, "It's a shame you're pregnant because we're doing The Persuaders and we could have given you some lovely jobs abroad." And there I was, 3 months pregnant. I said, "Well, thanks, Bob."
I just wanted to say that it was very brave of you to talk about your experiences of being sexually harassed in your early days. And I just wondered if, your agents supported you through that process, or did you have to find your own support? How was it? I mean,
It went with the job. It went with the interview. If you moaned and oh well, that's showbiz, darling. And only later on, when you were young, they could get away with it because you were innocent and you wanted the job anyway. And if you didn't get it, you just came home miserable. But no, there was no support.
I've got a story. I went to an agent down Shaftesbury Avenue, and of course there was a curtain, and behind the curtain his wife was typing, and then there was this curtain, and that was his office. And I had my little book of all the serious plays I'd done in South Africa, and he was sitting on the sofa, and the wife was, here with the curtain, and immediately the hand came on the knee, and I went like this, and I couldn't believe that he was trying to flirt with me, put his hand everywhere with his wife just behind the curtain. But that happened all the time to us, all the time. You just had to sort it out.
Well, it happened in America, didn't it, with that, I can't remember his name. What is the name of the one?
Yes, Weinstein.
Oh, yeah, he's
I never had that experience. Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein, so I mean...
But it was usually CD film directors and CD agents. No sort of great theatre directors or actors or anybody like that was like that with us, wasn't it? Was it?
I always used to say it probably happens more in office, just as much in offices, you know what I mean?
Yeah, probably.
It's not so,
positions of power, all the rest of it. Yeah.
You were in IMDb says you were in a hard day's night. What was it like being?
See, I'm forgetting all these things.
But that was the. I mean,
think of the bad things.
just seeing the Beatles at their height.
Well, I was asked if I'd like to be in the Beatles film, so I went there. The Beatles. No, I knew who they were, and it was filmed at a theatre near in town anyway. And there were all these people yelling about the Beatles. And when we got there, Dick Lester said, right, I'm going to have you three glamour girls to look really great. One was Rosemary Franklin, who was Miss World. The other one was Sherry Winton, Dana's mother. And the bottom one was me. So there we were with fishnet stockings, very high heels, very low necks, lots of cleavage, hair up to here, with feathers and everything. And out we went to do rehearsals, and the Beatles were sort of on the sideline, they're watching us. And suddenly Dick Lester said, I'm going to have to take one of you out. He said, this is a children's film, this is a film for kids. We can't have all this, because we all were very well endowed. So who did they choose? Me. But that was actually quite good, because I got a part with Wilfred Bramble playing the granddad. And so there was Ringo running up and down the train saying, hey, where's Grandad? And what's Grandad? And I'm sitting there with him, and he's holding my hand. And I had an sort of typical 60s haircut, with all the loops and everything. And then Ringo walks in and says, hey, Grandad, where have you been? And he grabs my hand, Wilfred Brown, and he says, I've just become engaged. And I go, that was my scene. But afterwards, it actually, people remember it because it was a cameo part.
What did you think of the Beatles? What were they like?
Well, it was
were they
wonderful.
very self-contained?
It was so wonderful. They were rehearsing during the day. We were all sitting in this theatre, listening to them play and sing, and they were very friendly. And then in the evenings, we'd all go out to a discotheque. So there would be, Paul McCartney had Jane Asher with him, Ringo had a girlfriend, and I used to tag along. The other two girls didn't come. And we used to go to the discotheque and dance and drink, and then we were flying the next day. And I don't know how they did it, but they were young, as we all were. But it was a great experience. And I've got a picture of me with Wilfred Bramble, but all I've got of me with the Beatles is something I took from a film clip. Is the top of my head and my profile with the feathers and everything.
Well, that's something.
It's something.
Right, thank you very much, ladies. Big round of applause.
Yeah.